how best to deliver on these 6 demands, because, in fact, they and all of us are telling our stories and our narratives and developing the stories and narratives within the fish tank. The longer you swim in a culture, the more invisible it becomes. And some people asked me earlier, like, why did you call it challenging status quo supremacy, right? Why didn't you just call it challenging white supremacy in higher ed? And I think it's white supremacy for sure, but it's also rich folk supremacy, and there's a power supremacy, and it's a whole thing that keeps pyramids going, right, and structures going. It's not just one thing. But I would, you have some homework. Look up an article called Jones and Okun, 2001, White Supremacy Culture. But they could name it something else. They could call it toxic capitalist supremacy culture or whatever, right? And again, there's like a list of 6 to 10 things that we all could see in our workplace, in our whatever, that are kind of toxic. Don't question authority. Right to comfort. Defensiveness when you question power. Love of the written word. Paternalism. Either or thinking. Progress is better than your concerns. So there's these things that are part of, some would say, the white supremacist culture, or just the status quo culture. And we are all these little fishies swimming in them. So hopefully through this talk, what I'd like to do is, as one of my students prior said, you need to smash this tank and create a new one. But people won't be okay with you to smash this tank unless you create new water, put in new plants, make it look pretty, make it look understandable as a place that we can get to in the future. And then fishies would be willing to go into that new structure. You see what I'm saying? All right. So, this is an example of status quo supremacy. All right? This is the early 2000s. This is University of Wisconsin. I think it was like 2001, 2002. Can you spot that there's something strange about the picture? Ah! Say it louder. They photoshopped the only black dude in the picture. Yes. Right. Correct. And so he was like, I guess he worked on campus, and someone said oh, you're on the cover of the thing. He's like, I am? I don't go to the football game. That's not. And so he looked at it and he was like, wait, the sun is hitting me in a different light, and this just. But it was a sad reality that the institution was trying to do the right thing, but they couldn't find a picture of white students and students of color having fun together. Right? I mean, that's a lot. And this is not, again, this is not to diss University of Wisconsin. You can do any other campus and whatever. In 2001, that might have been the case. It still might be the case with a lot of places. Okay. And it became a whole thing, and he sued the institution, rightfully so, and that happens. But an institution oftentimes upholds the status quo because they're scared of losing money. They're scared of losing money and prestige. But my hypothesis today is that, I know it's not the best example, but Sheryl Sandberg, right, might be a little bit status quo, but if they actually leaned into some of these demands and leaned into some of this equity and justice work, they could have more money and prestige. Okay? That's my working hypothesis. All right. Everyone's like, oh no, he's a communist, he's a Marxist. I knew it. I told you. So I just put this because it's helpful to understand that the stuff that Mario Savio and the students in the 60s at Berkeley were saying, that this is a business. Higher education is a business, right? And whatever you want to call it, there's a CEO at the top, which is the president. There's a board of regents or board of directors, just like at any other company that makes a bunch of money. And I'm a student and I don't want to be the raw material for this institution, right? That's, and notice, I'm going to step out of the light. Notice the top is not the king. The top is a bag of money, which is interesting, right? I told you, prestige and money is in that little sack. And so the folks that are at the top and the middle are they're just trying to do their jobs, right? They don't want to get fired, because if you challenge the system, you might not have a job, right? And that has happened to a lot of my friends, especially in diversity work, okay? So think about this. The folks at the top are not bad people. I don't want people to walk away from this thing, oh yeah, let's go pitchfork the administration building. That's not the point of my talk, okay? Seriously. But for you to help understand the truth that they're living in. You see what I'm saying? And you have your own truth, and maybe through discussion and power sharing, we could change things up. Okay, boom, white fragility. Here he goes. So you're a good audience. I appreciate you. So how many people know Robin DiAngelo's book, White Fragility? Yes. Oh, some of my students, some of my coworkers. Okay. So basically, she's saying that we got a lot of folks that are racially illiterate, that are reading at a third grade level. But they're grown, right? They're adults, and they're in positions of power. But they're reading at a third grade level, and they're making decisions, policies, and practices that dictate what happens in your life at this institution. And that's very scary, right? So we can actually change the title of white fragility to status quo fragility, right? Because again, it's not just about white people, right? You could be a black or brown person who's in a position on the pyramid, and you still have to play the game, because if you don't play the game, you're going to be out, okay? Has anyone ever read Frantz Fanon? Black skin, white masks? Hey, okay. Okay, that's that notion. It's like this colonial notion that if you don't play the game of the colonizer, that you're going to be next. Okay. And yes. So this notion of where I think we need to go, and the story that we need to be telling ourselves as an institution, is moving from diversity to justice. Okay? So diversity is that Wisconsin brochure where everyone's rainbow together and happy, and there's black and brown and white kids, and they're all doing it together, right? But it's fake. It's fabricated, right? So diversity, as Verna Myers, she's awesome. She is the Netflix Chief Diversity Officer. And she says diversity is, you've heard this before, right? Diversity is being invited to the dance, right? And then inclusion, she says, is actually dancing, right? You know, right? Because someone can invite you to the school, you come to the dance, which is you're admitted to the school, and it's like, well, figure it out on your own. But inclusion is, okay, let's dance. Oh, you need to go to this, you need to go to this. Like, I'll figure out how your schedule works, and we can have, racial justice training workshops, whatnot. But Dr. Defina Lazarus-Stewart, he says that we need to move to justice. And he has this great article called Language of Appeasement in Inside Higher Ed. You should check it out. And he says, diversity asks, how many black or brown students did we get this year as an institution? But justice asks, what systemic barriers have we put up so that those folks can't get into the institution? Do it again. Diversity asks, we just had a Black Lives Matter speaker last year. Why don't we have an alt-right speaker this year? Fair and balanced, right? Balance it out. Justice would say, why would we invite a speaker that is threatening our students' existence and causing maybe violence, both physically but also mentally and emotionally? You see what I'm saying? And I'll do one more. Diversity asks, or diversity rewards administrators who say, well, we brought all these speakers this year, and we brought a lot of students, and we met our, kind of like quota for one faculty of color this year. Justice would say, that's cool, but have you chipped away at the systemic racism, sexism, classism that exists at the institution, and how many of those, I was going to cuss, glad I didn't, how many of those, because Mom's watching, sorry Mom, I don't want to do that to you, how many of those messed up policies have we thrown out the window? How many of those have we gotten rid of, right? That's real systemic justice work, okay? Oh, and one more thing. I came up with this little cool thing. So diversity is who's invited to the dance. Inclusion is are we dancing? But justice, this is my little spin, proud of this, who owns the dance hall, right? And maybe one person shouldn't be owning the dance hall. Maybe we should collectively be owning the dance hall. You know what I mean? Or maybe no one should own the dance hall. I don't know. That's super like, ooh, democratic socialism. Ocasio-Cortez, you guys are great. Okay, so here's like, I don't know, whatever. The next 3 slides are like ideas of where we can go as an institution to reach that justice land, right? Whatever, that promised land, justice place. So Dr. Jimena Zuniga, she's at Amherst now. She created this thing called intergroup dialogue, right? Where it's intricate and there's a lot of processes, but it's basically like 4 ways of getting folks to talk to each other, but it's a class. It's a class where you learn to really hear with your heart and your mind and your soul to other people. And that's cool, and I think we should have it at this institution. But it's students talking to students. I want you to think back to that slide with the pyramid. We need to have a class like this where the board of trustees and the president are talking to students. You see what I'm saying? Because that's where the real systemic change happens. Because if they own the dance hall, but we're the folks going through the dance hall, we should have a greater say in what happens in the dance hall, right? It should be more democratic, right? How many people voted for the president at this institution? Right? It doesn't work like that. You don't get a choice. I mean, you don't vote for the president. How many people voted for the board of trustees at this institution? Or any college you've ever been at. I don't want to pick on this institution. No hands, right? We don't do that. And even me saying it, it's like, that's a little weird. But I guess we vote for the president of the U.S. and okay, this is interesting. So trying to break that fish tank. You know, and think about what a bigger, nicer tank or whatever you envision. Maybe we're just in the ocean. Maybe we don't need a tank anymore, right? All right. And then justice courses, meaning if you're a first year at this institution or pick your institution, why isn't there a class that teaches you about the power structure and the power systems and the pyramid and college student development and how it all works from day one? You see what I'm saying? So that you understand how the institution works because it's your institution. You're paying the big bucks. You're the customer. In what other industry do we tell the customer that they're wrong? You see what I'm saying? So, but I don't want these classes to just be students. Again, I think we should maybe have a separate class for some of these folks. This is the president's cabinet. And again, I'm not picking on the school. It could be any president's cabinet, right? But I just want to make it real for you all because you've seen these people walking around, and they're nice people. I love these people. I hang out with them all the time. Now, that's not true. I hang out with – that last part was not true. I don't know why I said that. I probably wouldn't be here if I hung out with them more. Or for sure, after this, I won't be able to hang out with them more. I just lost a lot of potential friends, but that's okay. That's what happens with justice work. Sometimes you lose friends. That's all right. But maybe they should have a racial justice course or a gender justice course where they're learning about Robin DiAngelo, right? Where they're learning about Dr. Defina Lazarus Stewart, where they're learning about Dr. Cornell West, Dr. Angela Davis, where they're thinking about these theoretical big picture things and then making policy based on those class, race, gender, adaptive needs, disability, religious differences, justice work. All right? I'm almost done, I swear. I know people want to go home. I'm the last guy here. They're like, need to get out of here. And the Chief Diversity Officer, 2005, Dr. Damon Williams wrote a book about the Chief Diversity Officer and this notion of inclusive excellence. So at an institution like this, we're at a pivotal moment, right, where the Diversity Center is thinking about who we're going to hire to be the Chief Diversity Officer. And I believe that we need to pick someone and give them the money and the power to actually do the job really effectively. Meaning, don't just pick a person and expect them to just do programs and make the brochures, right? Pick a person, Wisconsin, right? Pick a person and then give them the power and the money to look into, hey, physics, hey, chemistry, hey, biology, hey, history. What is your tenure process accountability look like? Do you have diversity or justice accountability markers in your tenure promotion for your faculty, staff, administrators, so on and so forth? Really getting into the nuts and bolts of the systemic institution is the inclusive excellence model and the Chief Diversity Officer model. And I can talk about more about that on the panel. And I'm wrapping it up, but this is interesting because Nordstrom, right? People like to shop at Nordstrom. Nordstrom, like Nordstrom Rack, Nordstrom has this inverted pyramid model where they put the CEO on the bottom, right? Honestly, I don't really know how it works. I don't even know if it works, but it's a nice idea, right? Because they center the customers at the top. And apparently the CEO has to be on the ground floor selling things and work his or her way up or their way up the food chain. But just to challenge our thinking of pyramids and structures, right? Something to think about. And I'll end with, again, there's our truth, your truth, and the truth. And it's not to say the folks that are running the dance hall are bad folks. Maybe they just need to have a big conversation with everybody in this room, And maybe we need to understand where we're all coming from and how we can together write a new narrative for this institution and really move from diversity to justice work. Okay? So thank you all and have a beautiful day.
So we've now reached the time in the conference where we're going to have a Q&A session. So I'm going to invite out the speakers again to come and answer questions from the audience. So this is your time to think about your questions that you have for specific speakers.